Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. If you guys had tried to join us last week, we know that we had a little problem, but here we are today getting ready to rock and roll and hear from an amazing woman who's doing amazing things in our community. So I want to first introduce myself. My name is Lydia Rivera Early, and I'm the Director of Community Engagement at STCC. Thank you guys again for joining our last We the Woman Virtual Tea Series. We are hoping that through this platform, we are able to connect and able to fulfill some of what we are missing. As we know, we are facing a new normal, and it's like super unreal for a lot of us. And a lot of us are missing that human connection and missing socializing with one another. So we hope that we can bring a little bit of that is missing on these very difficult times. Before we get started, I want to make sure that I go over a couple of things, logistics for today. So the speaker and I will be having a discussion. I will be asking questions and she will be answering. You all will have the opportunity to ask questions as well. You can either type them up on the chat on the right-hand side of your screen, or you can simply raise your hand and we will unmute your mic so that you can actually ask the question yourself. Okay, before I introduce my guest speaker, I want to make sure that I thank some of the sponsors for this event and the people that collaborated with the Community Engagement Office to make this possible. And I would like to thank Vanetta Lightfoot and Keith Paul for helping me put this together and helping with all the technicalities of this. This is a learning experience for all of us, and we're just trying to make sure that we learn from all of it so that we can provide better programming the next time around and as we move forward, right? And so I'd like to thank the Office of the Multicultural Affairs and the STCC Division of External Affairs and the Foundation. So I am going to get ready to introduce our guest speaker, and I will read from her bio. So Miss Karla Medina, an entrepreneur who owns a fitness studio, holds many local and national press, book publication, and video publication credits. She is the owner and master trainer at Sudor Taino Group Fitness, a studio dedicated to enhancing people's individual's journey towards health, fitness, and life. Her spirit, mind-body approach contributes to her authentic style and allows her to move people individually, motivate them collectively, and move them culturally. So without further ado, Karla.
Oh, I'm muted. There we go.
Yes. Hi, Karla. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. I am super excited to have you today. Thank you so much for taking some time to be with us.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so as we know, I'm going to be asking you some questions. Please take your time to answer. We have a lot of people here today wanting to hear from you.
Okay.
So the first question I have for you today is, can you take us through your trajectory to where you're at, your current situation, your current job?
Well, my current situation is fluffy because usually my sides are shaped, but I figure I come to you as authentically as I can, and that is fluffy sides right now, and maybe a little hairy if you get up close, you know, eyebrows and all this other stuff. But I figure that that's that's the best way to kind of present yourself in this current situation. But as far as the trajectory, I believe my life has been like a spider web of service. So it hasn't been just like one thing. It has to do with like more, I'm just putting up my volume because I think I saw that somewhere. So I just wanted to talk about how my life has always been of service. I just didn't know like where it was kind of going, but I knew I was always going to be in that service mode. So even just growing up in Hartford during the time of gang wars and things like that, I knew I wanted to help. And that kind of gave me the influence or kind of the foundation I needed to like start my trajectory towards service. So that being said, I went away to college, and then I thought to myself, like, I really want to serve the city. And I came back and I went to the police academy. So that was like the first thing. And then I found different ways within the police academy to then go into the police field and use my talent, so to speak, or my gifts to just serve in different ways. And I mean, that went from being a part of the gang unit to, you know, serving as a sergeant as with the police explorers and PAL in the community. So that ended up stemming into a bunch of different things, because then, you know, with everything, there's a little bit of life happens and you gain weight and stuff like that. So I gained about 80 pounds on midnights. And I mean, midnights is hard as it, you know, is, not just because you eat everything, but because your sleeping is off, your whole life changes. So that being said, when that happened, I ended up getting into an incident where I almost lost my life, and God saved me from that. So that's a whole nother issue. But I also thought then, like, could I be in better shape? Could I be treating my body better? And then that started the fitness portion of the trajectory of my career, and then stemming into what it is now.
Great. That's awesome. So why fitness?
Why not? That's the question, right? Fitness, because it not only was fitness to me, I ended up finding a new way to look at fitness. In fitness, it's really about mind, body, spirit. They always talk about it that way. For me, it was more spirit, mind, body. So, you know, I ended up changing the order of that. So to me, it always became about spiritual first, and then mindfully doing something, and then you can get your body to do anything you wanted to if those two things were intact.
Yeah. Okay, so I know part of what you always say or go by is like balance, right? So how do you balance work and life responsibilities?
So I believe that word balance causes people a lot of stress, because in fact, there's really no balance. I feel like every day someone loses that's in our life. Like, let's just say, you know, today I have to spend all this time on a webinar. So even though my daughter's home and she wants me to like do her hair or do something, I have to do my work, right? I have to do this. And then, you know, tonight, you know, my husband wants attention, but I have to teach during dinner time. So it's a negotiation, really. In order for it to maintain a balance, you have to like almost dangle the carrot, like, okay, on the weekend, I'm going to do this with you. And then you end up putting that that time frame on that person. So like you're saying, just hold out for me, I'm going to do this. But the thing is, you have to follow through, because then if you don't, then you lose trust with that person, and that creates the stress. So the balance is really the negotiation of everyday life, for me anyways. Yeah.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you for that answer. So as a female leader, what has been the most significant barrier in your career? What, be it whether you were when you was in the police department, or here now being an entrepreneur, owning your own business and having such a name for yourself?
Right. So I believe that the biggest barrier is really the narrative that we keep getting told about ourselves. Like, you have the lack of opportunity, you are Spanish and therefore you're going to be looked at different, you're a female, you're going to be treated different. So the narrative keeps playing in your head, and it puts you on the defensive. And I know for many years, you know, for probably the first 10 years of my career in the police department, I walked around with a chip on my shoulder. And that's the total opposite of making connection, gathering resources and things like that. So to me, it's really about, you know, yes, understanding that the narrative does have truth to it, but then really working with the narrative instead of being on the defensive, and just kind of gathering your knowledge, your training, your resources, and being prepared instead of on the defensive. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I wish more of us like walked around with that chip on our shoulders, right?
Yes.
Because we, like you said, we get to the narrative and we believe it, you know, like we had to let that go. So thank you.
And then I right, but I think that we even influence it, because then they're like, oh, look, she's ghetto, or oh, look, she has a chip on her shoulder. And I think that because we're passionate about what we do, wherever we do it, that can translate into like erratic, sporadic, and all that stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me, who inspired you and why?
Wow. I guess inspiring is different than mentors, because those are two different things. I believe that I was inspired by who I wanted to be in 5 years, and I'm always chasing that person. So I feel like I'm always chasing that person. I have my eyes on that person. Long ago, I really admired this particular person in fitness. And I remember going to a training where they were, and the entire time they were consumed by something that was happening in their life, and they were very negative, and they brought it into the training. And I'm thinking to myself, like I wasted my time, I wasted my money, but I was putting all my eggs in that basket, in her basket. Think about the pressure she had without even knowing it, but she was like this idol to me, and she didn't even know it. And then she disappointed me, and she didn't even know it. So I made a decision that day that I would fill my buckets with the person I was looking, aiming, and striving to be.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That is definitely something to think about for
Because
sure.
we're human, and that's why I like to tell the people that, you know, even follow me or think I have it all, or that's why showing up with these sides out, which I would never do because I love my hair being sharp. You know, I feel like it's part of what we need to show is our vulnerability in order for people to understand that no one's perfect, you know, except God. That's it, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we're striving for that perfection that we're never going to find. So for you to say that is absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And,
by the way, look at my cup.
Oh, amazing. Your crown.
I'm fixing my crown today.
Yeah, I mean, like you say that you made reference to that. Oftentimes we are our own worst critics, you know. So it is okay for us to really empower one another with all of our shortcomings, because we all do have some.
I always say I don't need any negative friends because I can do that myself. Like, we're brutal to ourselves as far as, you know, you're not even talking about just physically. You're talking about professionally. You're talking about your education. You're talking about everything. It's never enough. And yes, we can strive to be and always have goals, but at the end of the day, you also have to acknowledge where you're at, how far you've come, and what you do have available to you. We've earned the resources we've had. We earned the education we have. We've earned the training, the experience. So we have to own it. Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask another question, and then I'm going to see if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask, or they want to type up on the chat. Okay. So if anybody is thinking about it, you guys can start just typing it up. Okay. So the next question is, what do you believe to be the greatest quality one must possess to be able to inspire others?
Inspire. Wow. Well, I think we talk about the vulnerability, but I feel like there's integrity in being able to show vulnerability. So if you're going to ask me, the biggest one is your integrity. So if you have integrity in what you say, what you do, what you communicate with your body, what you communicate with your words, following through, communicating, then I believe that integrity is that word that will always put you in a different category than people who don't have integrity. It will always be what keeps me, you know, just saying, does this show who I am? Is this correct? Am I in alignment with who I am and what I'm projecting and what I'm putting out there?
Okay, thank you. We do have a question coming in. Let's see.
Okay.
So we have a question from Janet Mendez. It says, what keeps you motivated even now during COVID-19?
So not that people are watching, more that they're depending on me to provide them with motivation. So it gives me more of a recovery time, because let's all face it, I'm human. So I have my down times where I'm like, I give up, or I don't want to do that, or I don't feel like working out, or I don't feel like doing that. But at the end of the day, it's not that they're watching, because to me that really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, people are going to watch, people are going to say, and people are going to jump to their own conclusions about you anyways. But it's more that they're depending on me to bring them some sort of relief. And I'm not even just talking about now, I'm talking about in general. I check my problems at the door and I say it's time to get down. When I flip on that camera and I'm doing it virtually, it's the same thing. You're not coming to me to find out what my problems are. You're coming to me to find out, to give you what God has gifted me with. And I'm just the vessel that transports that.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
So tell me, what is your motto?
Motto. So, you know, I talk about this, that my motto, and I put out something about it. It's simple. I call it, it's simple. And it's being spiritually driven first. You inhale and you exhale. You manage your time. You provide for others. You lead by example, and you exercise. When I say exercise, I mean you exercise spirit, the mind, and the body every single day. So that could be very small. It could be something like you read a scripture, you do a meditation, you do something for your body, whether it's take a walk, because again, it's different for everybody. Everybody's in a different level, playing field, what's available to them and everything else. But I believe that was one of my failures in the beginning of time, is that I wasn't spiritually driven and I was just driving and not being led by my spiritualness, more what the world was doing and what they were saying and what was the fad, what was in. Now that is irrelevant to me. I shut out that noise in order to, you know, pay attention to my spiritual calling and what I'm really here to do.
Oh.
I know I get deep on it. Like,
I know, listen, all of these things really resonate, because again, we live in a world that we are just chasing what they tell you to do, chasing you should have a house with a picket fence, with a dog and 2 kids and all that. And that's supposed to be the American dream. But really, what is your dream? So when you speak like that, it really resonates and stuff. And I hope that our audience can really feel that. Because
and a lot of people don't know what their dream is, because they're so focused on the other. So when you say, what is your dream? Then they get depressed. What is your purpose? Then they get depressed. They don't know, because they're always running in 100 different directions for everybody else. When people ask me what my dream is not a dream, because my dream is going to be my reality. So I don't have a dream. Like, it's not that way. You dream when you sleep because you're subconscious, but I'm conscious that I'm chasing my reality.
Amazing. Thank you. All right. I think we have another question. Let me see here. Okay. So, from Marisol Reyes Hernandez, what has been Karla's silver lining during this time?
Oh, wow. My silver lining. Well, I can tell you that because of my fitness life, I'm never home at, you know, that 5:30, 6 o'clock. I'm never here, because I'm always gone. And my daughter's a senior in high school, so she's going through it right now. So I have been able to be there for her. I have also been able to sit down for dinners. I've been able to actually cook dinners, and everybody who knows Karla don't cook. So I've learned that, you know, it's not about so much the spices you put in, it's the spice for wanting to create something that your family is going to enjoy. And, you know, so I've cooked, I clean, I'm doing all these things that I just kind of just was rushing through. Now I'm taking my time, and even I have integrity even in the way the toilet is shining. You know what I mean? Like, oh, check that toilet out, you know? So I've started to look at the glass half full instead of half empty, because I think that that's what we're supposed to be doing now. We really took a time out of life, and, you know, even questioning like where the trajectory is now. Just because you were focused on having this big studio that can fit 50 people doesn't mean that that's where you're still going. It could be you're going in 100 different directions, but don't tell nobody, because, you know, then I'll get in trouble for saying that. But I'm just saying that it changes. So my silver lining has been time to listen to myself, time to get even more plugged into my spiritualness and really listen to myself and what, you know, really God is trying to tell me at this time, at this particular time anyways.
Thank you. We have a few more questions, so I'm going to try to get to this really quickly. All right. Recently, I feel myself falling deeper and deeper into depression. How can I get unstuck? From Jeanette.
So, you know, I always call upon those people that may have been depressed before, but they got out of it. I always call upon support. So to me, support is key. You know, again, taking time to take a walk and enjoy everything else. And I don't even mean like, you know, just look around. Like, we're still blessed, even though I can sit on my porch and look around and have nature. There's people who, not just because of the pandemic, but they don't have that opportunity. Even turning on the TV and seeing what disaster people are still going through and what they're living, and just the fact that we're not in a hospital bed and fighting for our life at this time. So my daughter always says, "Oh my God, you're so dramatic," because, you know, she tells me, "Look at this spot on my leg," and I'm going, "At least you have legs." You know, and she's like, "Are you serious? Can I just complain for 1 minute?" And I'm like, no, it's we make our life, and if we don't like it, then we should become diligent, just as diligent as we are as listening to our negative thoughts. We need to become diligent about changing the trajectory and really putting things into place where they can make our life better in some way.
Absolutely. All right, let's see what else we have here. This is Margarita LaBoy. When you have had downfalls, disappointment, how or what did you do to overcome them?
So I'll tell you a quick story, and it's actually happened a couple times to me. Once when I was after I had my daughter, and it was because I had worked so hard for my outward appearance that my stomach was hanging, you know, and I flipped out. And just recently, when I had my back surgery about a year and some change ago, I wanted to go to the bathroom, and I think I forgot. Like, I woke up in the morning and I forgot that I had surgery, and I just wanted to walk out of bed, and I fell to the ground. During that time, I just cried and I said, "I can't get up." I literally fallen and I can't get up. You know, I didn't have the clapper going on there, but I was on the ground and I said to myself, like, okay, this is what's going to happen. You're going to lose your business. Like, all the negative thoughts that you could possibly think of in 15 seconds, they all came flooding over me spiritually, mentally, and physically. And I remember I had my phone with me because it was on the charger and it was on the floor. So I'm flicking through the phone because I'm like, I better do, somebody gotta help me get up. So I'm flicking through the phone. And during that time, one of the people I follow, one of the fitness schools I follow, and I've gone to his seminars, he found out he had to get a knee surgery. And his answer to the knee surgery was going into his garage, picking up a kettlebell on crutches and working out. And he played some music that it was like warrior music. And I felt this fire. I'm like, this fire started to build inside me. And I'm like, I'm going to get up off this floor and I am going to get down and busy and I'm going to get better. I'm going to rock. I'm going to do this. So right then and there, it's the promises you make yourself. That I didn't say I was going to walk that day. I was saying I'm going to begin the process and be willing to put in the work to get better. So then I can get better and then I can do what I came to do on this earth. So it's not setting this random goal. I'm going to lose 50 pounds tomorrow. I am going to get my bachelor's in 2 weeks. I mean, it's ridiculous. You have to be realistic with yourself and say, you know what? I'm going to promise myself and I'm going to put up a calendar and I'm going to walk twice this week. If that's all you got, you put it down on the calendar. I'm a highlighter. I'm a sticky person. Put those things up and watch them work. Put up, you know, I am beautiful. I am strong. Put them up. and start to believe them, start to fill your buckets with positivity. So what got me off that floor, what got me to find fitness was, I'm not satisfied where I am at. And I now have to pick myself up, dust myself off, and start the process. See, people are in love with the end product, not the process. So if you commit to the process, it's different than committed to the end result, because everybody can commit to the end result. It's about committing to the process. So I would tell you, Margarita, that start small, start realistic, but start. Because you will achieve a goal if you start. I tell you what, you'll never achieve it if you don't.
Amazing. That's definitely, it's great. I mean, I come in contact with so many women myself that come to me with different ideas of what they want. I'm like, okay, well, first of all, let's cut that out into like 500 little pieces, right? So yeah, just get started, get moving, and find your way. You definitely will. The next question is like, what is some advice that you will give young women who want to become entrepreneurs?
Well, you know, one of my field training officers always told me you're only as good as your resources. So in order to obtain resources, you have to be a resource. So training, your knowledge, your experience, knowing your stuff. And it's okay to say, I have to prove myself. If you show up mediocre, people watch that. So it doesn't matter if you're Spanish, African-American, polka dotted, doesn't matter. You have proven yourself, you've proven your work, then you will be a resource. And in turn, you will gain the resources that you need. I think that chip on the shoulder eliminates half of the resources. And then the other half, if you show up and do your job mediocre, if someone tells you, I need 10 places that I can get a lawn chair, and that's your job, you give them 15. You give them the prices, and then you also color code it, because that's integrity in your work. You don't just slap on and say, oh, here, or say, I couldn't find, these are the only 3 I could find. No, that's where it starts. Your mediocreness is where it starts, as far as you not being a resource, and then you're cutting yourself off from resources, and then you never getting a shot. But then you want to play the victim, you know, that no, doesn't match. So if we're going to play victim, it's because you're truly a victim. And even in that case, you can use that to become more motivated and more driven to prove otherwise. But if you're going to ask me, having resources is more important than anything, and being a resource. So the word resources is huge for me.
Right. All right. So earlier I asked about who inspire you, which you said that is different than having a leader, a mentor, and stuff like that. So do you have a mentor? If so, who it is?
So I won't say, you know, you can have a mentor and they don't even know it, because you're watching what they're doing. You know, you're watching the things, or you're watching what they're saying, or how they're doing in their business. But I feel like different people, I have different mentors in different brackets. So like I have someone that I go to for family things. I have someone who's my confidant and will always give me the raw truth and say, okay, let's think about this, let's take a step back. I have someone who I watch what they do in fitness. I have someone who I watch what they do in business. I have someone who, you know, gives me educational resources, someone who's a business mentor, total business mentor. So in different ways, not everyone has your every answer. And it's the same. You have to, in order to become authentically driven, you have to take different things from different people and then create your own. So I feel like it's the same with mentors. You don't just have one, because that person can't be the all-knowing, because they may have a business, but they don't know fitness. Or they may have a fitness business and they don't have family. So you need to pull from different resources. Again, the word resource pops up. You need to pull from that in order to get mentorship advice, not necessarily have just one mentor, if that makes sense.
It definitely does. I see a lot of people who get introduced or meet someone and stuff, and then that person becomes their all, and then you see them trying to replicate that, and it's just like, again, I go back to being authentic. So
and that is key. It happens 100% of the time, and I'm not even going to say that I have not been guilty of it at some point in my life. And I guess, you know, as you go through it, and again, you get a disappointment from that person, or that person doesn't call you back, or that person doesn't can't give you the attention they did in the beginning, or something they did you do and it doesn't work out. I can't be responsible for that. So I always say, I'm here to give you advice and mentorship advice. But as far as having one mentor, that's why it's key, because we're all human. We will all fail. And not everything that someone else does is going to work for you.
Absolutely. That's definitely best advice I've heard in a while. Well,
yeah.
So, okay, Dorian, let's shift a little bit about, I'm jumping around my questions because there's so much that I want to like get in. And I'm excited like a little kid, like, you know. So again, these are very difficult times that we're facing. Everybody is on edge. A lot of us don't know how to react and cope with what we have been dealing with. And I come across this phrase now a lot more than I've ever had, but I've heard this from you plenty of times before. And that is faith over fear. Why faith over fear? Like, why? There's
nothing, like but there's nothing else that you can be anchored in that won't be shaken. You know, fear is something real. Fear comes from a simple worry that you hear in your head over and over. That creates anxiety, which then produces a body reaction, a mental reaction. Hell, you even can break out in a rash, you know. So my thing is, it's all encompassing. So, you know, you have the fear that turns into anxiety and worry, and then it controls you and paralyzes you from doing everything that you have to do. It can be as simple as going to the grocery store. It can be as simple as applying to school, applying, you know, to a new job. You start telling yourself these things over and over and over and over, and then watching people around you saying, I don't have that, I don't have that, I don't have that. And then it starts to compound, and then it paralyzes you to the point that you do nothing about what you really want in life. So, you know, COVID-19 is nothing else. And I call COVID, it's more that we fear the unknown, right? But we always face the unknown. We can get into a car accident. We can jump in our car and have no fear, right? We get in, boom, you get into a car accident. So my thing is, that's an unknown. COVID-19 is an unknown. So what do you do when you face an unknown? You face it. And you can either face it with fear, like this, or you can face it with faith. And faith just means you're going to get through it. Not that you're going to beat it. I mean, not necessarily beat it, but you're going to get through it. It's faith to get to the other side. It's like, you know, the Red Sea, like, we're going to get to the other side. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to part those ways and we're going to go and get through it. So would I say that that's always the case? No, because everybody has a bad day. But when you sit and really apply logic to fear and to faith, anyone who I've ever known, and I can tell right off the bat when they're facing something with fear and when they're facing something with faith. 9 times out of 10, the person with faith overcomes or gets through the situation, and whereas the other people don't. So when I'm looking at it logically, I say to myself, I'm going with faith, because faith 9.9.9999%, it works. So why wouldn't you go with something that works? That's only logical, but yet we become irrational and illogical when, you know, we're facing something with fear. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what will be some advice that you give to people that are just trying to find their peace right now? What do you do to meditate? What can people do?
So I think when we talk about meditation, I like to address that really quick, that a lot of people think that you have to be in this position, this position, right? And that you have to be in a quiet space and with candle scents and this and so. Sometimes you just got to run in your closet and throw yourself at the bottom of smelly shoes and just be in the dark for 15, 20 seconds and just say, okay, I'm getting my bearings back. I'm going to get my bearings back. And then cry it out, you know, punch it out if you got to, punch some clothes in the closet, and then just say, okay, that was enough. That's enough. So really the focus on something is not that you're not going to fall. It's that your recovery time starts to become shorter and shorter. So instead of being depressed for 7 months, like you were last year, it's 3 months. And then the next time you do it, it's 3 weeks. And the next time is 1 week. Give yourself credit. Give yourself credit for getting your butt up and taking a walk, because you could have stayed on the couch. I'm big on that credit tip. Like, I know people that needed medication or need like a crutch of some sort every single day of their life. And then there's some that are just getting over it. There's some that are not on medication right now. And there's some that are fighting tooth and nail. Credit, because depression is real. And even feeling like you're confined because of, you know, what the government, or because we can't do this, we can't do that. We just have to say to ourselves, let's become innovative. Let's use our brain. Shoot, when we were kids, my mother used to kick us out and say, get some sticks and some bottle caps, and I'll see you at night. The whole day we had to spend it outside. Come back when you're hungry. And now we complain about that. At least we have the outside. We have beautiful homes. Most of us are so blessed. Let's take a minute and just really, really sit with that. We're blessed. And we have this and we have that. We do have options. Is that we're choosing to focus on what we don't have right now.
Thank you. So what are 2 things you would like people to know about you? 2 main qualities.
Okay, I'll give you a fun fact.
Uh-huh.
I am a nasty individual early in the morning. I'm talking about, I need a minute. I need a minute to get my bearings. So usually within like 10, 15 minutes, I can mumble. Then half an hour, I can actually get a word off. And then an hour, a couple sentences. So I think that people think that I just wake up and I'm this joyous, positive person. It usually takes me a little bit to come into my, you know, own in the morning.
So let's make sure we don't gotta reach out that early.
Yeah. And another thing is that I really don't like speaking on things or I made a promise to myself, I don't speak on things I know nothing about. So like, I'll admit it before. Well, I have a joke though. There's 2 things. I have a joke where like I'll make a funny fact up and everybody will go, and they'll go, you just made that up? I'm like, yeah. So I'm known for that. Like, I just like throw a fun fact out, like just make up, oh, that comes from Italy. And they're like, you know, but that's just playing. But usually I really do my best not to speak on a situation, a case, something that I do not have full knowledge on. I do not put all my efforts and trajectory behind it, because I don't know my facts. And I want to, usually if we're sitting and we're having a conversation, I'm going to give you factual information that I've either researched or actually I was there, you know? So those are 2 things about me that, you know, I love that if people know that, then they stay out of my way in the morning, and then they will engage me on things that we can actually have a debate, but like a really fun, fair, and clean debate or conversation about things.
That's really nice to know, because I mean, we do always come in contact with that person that, you know, want to be a master and jack of all trades and stuff, and they know everything. I think we really should know our own talents and what we can be getting.
And they're like, they'll say to me like, oh, you heard about this thing? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
no. And then they're like, oh, well, this is what happened. And then as soon as they leave, I Google it to try to find out what they were saying. Is this true? Because then I don't want to go repeat what they said if it's not really true. So I want to make sure that I know if I'm going to speak on it again, that I have my facts.
Okay, so I'm going to check the chat and see if there's any questions here.
Yeah. I did want to tell you about some exciting things that I have coming up. So I'm going to do two different webinars. One is going to be really about helping people find a way to work out at home, meaning like they have injuries or they need modifications and things like that, and just kind of like gear it towards the basics of them. And a lot of people, they look at what's being put out there. They look at Lydia jumping this high and they say, I can't do that. Or, so you hear a lot of I can't. And I think that drawing it back to the basics for people who are home and don't know what to do, it's key. And then the other thing is, that I have my book, Divinely Fit. So I am going to create like a discussion about the chapters in the book, because I feel like it's time to dig in deep with people because we have the time to do it. So those are some exciting things that I have. And of course, I have my app and one-on-one training that I love this conversation. So I enjoy that one-on-one with people as well.
That's awesome. I was actually gonna ask you, like, what are some things that you have shifted to now that COVID-19? Because I know the work has changed a little bit or drastically for some. So just like let us know. And then afterwards, you can share the information with me as well, and we can share it about your webinars coming up and stuff.
Okay, that's awesome. Yep.
So let's go into some of the bonus questions, which are, what does it mean to you to give back to the community?
Everything. That's one of my, remember when we go back to the simple model that I use, it's provide for others. And as, an individual, we do a lot of things, me and my husband behind the scenes, but we also do a lot of things through the studio. I mean, we were very active in the efforts for Puerto Rico. Hurricane relief, we collected waters. I mean, we are there for our community. If someone has a death in the family or something like that, we try to do like a food chain. We do different types of things. We had one of our members, their son had his bike stolen from school. So we did a fundraiser to raise money for his bike. We did a Christmas makeover, which we actually did with Journey Home, and we totally revamped their house and we collected everything amongst members of the studio. So again, it's about planting the seed. And again, if we, going back to what you read in my bio, I don't like hearing my bio, but then again, I like being reminded of what I'm grounded in. And that is really to motivate people on an individual basis, and then collectively inspire them, but really culturally move them to do things that are going to be better for humankind. So bettering us as a culture is really what the supreme goal, or you want to say the divine goal is,
That has been one of the things that have always like driven me towards you. I remember the first time I went into the studio and I just felt that energy and that connectivity with everybody and stuff, that it just felt like I have to come back. I had to get to know this community better. I have to just I had to get completely immersed in it and stuff. And then when I connect with others, I'm like, okay, you should connect with so-and-so, you know what I mean? People
Resource.
Can feel exactly. So let's see what else we have here. Okay, if you had to start over from scratch, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently, if anything?
Nothing. I say nothing just because I believe even the hardships, which are in this book, they're there. Even the hardships, they actually made me who I am. They molded me. And I always say that they don't define you, they refine you. So defining me is not what they did, because there was a lot of things that were negative, but they have refined me. So everything that you go through, instead of it defining you, look at it as the refining process, as in going through the fire that cuts a diamond. You know, on the other side, you're going to come out more beautiful, displaying more colors, and being, you know, just the best version of yourself.
Great. Let me check the chat again really quickly. I don't think we have any other questions, so I'll move on to one of the ones here. What's one of the toughest decisions you have had to make, and how did it impact your life?
Toughest decision that I've ever had to make. I believe it was leaving the police department, because at that time I didn't feel like I was done. I was a sergeant, and I felt that I had more work to do. But the truth is that in dealing with bureaucracy and in dealing with basically municipalities and things like that, there's sometimes that you beat your head against the wall. There's things that are not going to change. And although I am a pioneer of change, I won't spin my wheels in directions that I don't believe they're going to catch, and that the momentum is going to get us somewhere. So at that time in my life, I knew that if I had stayed there, I was going to be beating my head against the wall. So when I was up for retirement, that was something that was a very hard decision, because I loved being a police officer. But I know that God had a different plan for me, and I had to just be okay with letting it go. So that was a very difficult decision for me, but I'm glad that I made it when I did.
Okay. And you still do have some connection with the police
Yes.
department?
Yeah. So I do the training for the Connecticut Police Academy. I still do that, and I still involved with a couple organizations behind the scenes. You know, I'm a behind the scenes person now. So that's always like still keeping my foot in the door. But it also is more about just creating pathways for people and being that resource for other people, so that I can say, okay, you can do this if you need to connect with that, and just keeping all those options open, not for me because I've already passed that time in my life, but maybe for other people.
Awesome. All right, I think we have a question right now. Any advice for people who want to go into law enforcement from Marisol?
Well, so there's a couple different things. I mean, I personally feel that it's very difficult to be a police officer this day and age, and I've communicated that very avidly to people, because of the simple fact that being a police officer is the only career in the world that you cannot have an opinion. You have to be blue. Even politicians can get on TV and say, well, how they feel. You know, presidents of you know, anybody. So anyone can say how they feel about something else. But if a police officer does, it will be held against them. So you can't have an opinion. You can't put a sticker on your car. You cannot, you know, and every decision you make is expected to be 100% right 100% of the time. And that is underlyingly a perfection, right? And nobody is perfect. So I feel that it's very difficult, and you have to understand that. Secondary, you have to understand that it is a male-dominated field. And you have to go in saying, I am willing to put in the work to prove myself, and that there is more men than there is women. That is a given. So to get there and complain about, oh, there's only 5 women on this shift, well, you knew that before you came in. So that's one of the things that I always say to people, is that get to know what the dynamics are of the job before that. Obviously, you have to be physically fit, because, you know, in case you encounter me at the, you know, doing your physical training, you want to be, no, I'm just kidding. No, but you have to be physically fit, obviously, because the academy requires you to pass certain tests. And I hear that the dynamics are also changing, but they're still, you know, a matter of you being physically fit and being able to handle the job. So that is key. But it also has to be that you're mentally prepared. I've known plenty of people that were not mentally prepared to see what they see, and that caused an issue for them once they were on the job. So those are all things to think about. But again, I run a recruit prep program where, you know, I prepare people for the physical agility that they have to take, or for the chip card. That's one thing. And then I also, you know, I'd be willing to talk to anyone that wanted a career in law enforcement, just to kind of air out those things. Because if you pass that like preliminary, then you're good to go. So I think that law enforcement is an amazing career. I don't want to take away from that. I just think the times are very difficult right now.
Absolutely. I can totally not relate, but I can totally like get what you're saying in a way that, you know, you can't fully be like expressive of your feelings and stuff in that kind of setting. So what are 3 events that help to shape your life?
All right. So one of them would be when I was almost dragged to my death. And again, it's in the book. It's a hard thing to talk about, but it's one of those things that made me realize that I needed to be more spiritually grounded, because I was like, I'm not going out like this, you know? So it was one of those things that I said to myself, like, this is a marker for me. Another marker for me was having my daughter, because before that point, and she's going to be 18 right now, I really had that rough exterior, that chip on my shoulder, and more, I was going through life like barreling through without being that compassionate person with myself, you know, and had a rough exterior on the outside. But, you know, I was compassionate still with other people, but not with myself. And I think if you're going to go through life making hard choices, you have to be very forgiving of yourself. So, you know, that would be number 2. And then number 3 is meeting my husband, because my husband accepts me for who I am, and he still is always building me up. And honestly, I'm like a butterfly, right? So he keeps me grounded. He'll grab onto one of the wings and say, "Come on back, girlfriend." So I think all of us that are kind of free spirits and think like that, we all need that grounding. So those 3 kind of stick out for me like a lot.
And those are definitely great ones and stuff. And I appreciate you just being so open and raw with us. I'm going to ask this one last question, and maybe any other of the participants have another question. But what is an accomplishment that you are the proudest of?
Accomplishment that I am the proudest of. Okay, so I will tell you, when I know this is going to be corny to some people, but when I was 8 years old and I was watching Superman and he had kryptonite, I said to myself that, God, if I could grab kryptonite, what would my kryptonite be and what would it do? And if I was a superhero, I would love to heal people's heart, because I felt that if I could heal their heart, everything else would fall into place. Because people are broken. It's why you seek fitness. It's why you seek revenge. It's why you seek validation. It's why you seek different things in your life. There's no one that's walking around that's never had anything happen to their heart. So for me, it was healing their heart. And I believe that God gifted me with fitness and the ability to touch people's heart without actually touching them, but by being around them and bringing them to their very best. So my greatest accomplishment is not only to be able to do it, but to be able to actually see it, because I can see the transformation as it's happening, either during a workout or months later or years later. So to me, that is like the cornerstone of my life, and why I'm so thankful for what I do and the opportunity that I get every single day. And that is to heal. And on top of that, to see the healing process take place.
Wow. Thank you for that. That is so amazing. Not many people get the chance to say that.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think we have one last question.
Okay.
Actually, we don't. So
okay.
Let's just see. We have a couple of minutes. We have 3 minutes or so before we get off this amazing chat. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. If not, again, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today, Karla. Every time you speak, we definitely get to feel that authentic self of, you know, what you bring to the table. You're raw. You really don't care what many have to say, whether they like it or not. I mean, and I think that it just takes a special person to be able to just, you know, go through life, learn from what they have experienced, and really put it into practice and help others.
Right. And you know, part of that also is, like, I call it the chameleon perspective, and part of that is putting yourself in their shoes. Like, how is this person feeling right now? How can I help them? Putting, like, just yourself in that position, and then saying, okay, think about what can I do for you? What can I do for you? And what I can do for people is the same. I can use a workout to help them see themselves. I can motivate them. I can do that. So to me, the story can be what it is, but my answer is always the same. This is what I can do. This is my part. This is my gift. This is what I can do to help them. And that is what I'm here for. So until my last breath, and maybe in heaven, I'll be doing the same thing. Who knows? But as of right now, this is what I have to offer. And I'm very committed to that in whatever direction that takes me in.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, no more questions. I'm going to say thank you to the participants who attended today and who asked amazing questions. Thank you. I'm sure that at some point we will be inviting you again to speak.
That's right.
And hopefully we'll be like an in-person type thing. This virtual thing is not, I don't like too much. But anyways, thank you so much. Have a great one.
Thank you, Keith.
Bye, everyone.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.